They called him a danger, not because he broke the law, not because he incited rebellion, but because he could not be ruled. His name was Alexander Hale, a man who walked through the early decades of the 20th century with a quiet, unsettling power, a man who stood in the heart of systems built to control everyone, yet somehow remained beyond their grasp. People didn't know how to explain it. They could predict others with money, fear, flattery, or shame. But Alexander, he was different. Society thrives on rules that no one questions. It tells you what to want, what to fear, what to admire, and it never needs to point a gun at you because your own mind becomes the weapon that keeps you in line. But what happens when a man refuses to react? When he refuses to be pulled like a puppet by fear, by greed, by the longing to be accepted? They say freedom is the right to speak, to buy, to move. But Alexander understood something far more dangerous. Freedom begins when you master yourself. Pause. Think about that. When no one can provoke your anger at will, when no one can lure you with glittering promises, when no insult can bend you and no praise can make you betray yourself, you are no longer under their control. Alexander lived by a strange code. He would listen, calmly, patiently, to those who tried to manipulate him, but his choices were always his own. People tried to guess his next move, but he became unpredictable. And that, my friends, is what terrified society. Not the rebels in the streets, not the loud critics, but the quiet ones, who cannot be bought, cannot be scared, cannot be led. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Alexander understood this deeply. His life was not built around the opinions of others, nor the shifting tides of approval. He lived in a way that made people stop and question their own chains. And that was dangerous. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear next will change the way you look at control, at power, and at the invisible strings you didn't even know were attached to you. Before we go deeper, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's coming, because this truth, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Alexander's story didn't happen in a vacuum. To understand why he could not be ruled, you must understand the world around him. The early 1900s were a time of rigid systems, politics, religion, commerce, all finely tuned to keep people predictable. Politicians knew how to ignite fear. Merchants knew how to spark desire. Churches knew how to cultivate shame. It was a perfect machine until someone like Alexander walked in. He didn't fight the machine. He simply didn't play. Let me give you an example. A wealthy industrialist once tried to bribe him subtly through a business deal. The man smiled, confident that Alexander would take the bait. He offered status, influence, money. Alexander looked at the papers, then at the man, and simply said, "I don't need it." No explanation, no anger, no moral lecture, just a refusal. The industrialist was confused. People always needed something. If not money, then recognition. If not recognition, then security. But Alexander's strength lay in something deeper. He did not chase what they dangled in front of him. It reminds me of an older story from centuries earlier. In the Gospels, there is a moment when Jesus is offered all the kingdoms of the world if he will just bow, and he refuses, not because the offer wasn't tempting, but because his purpose could not be bought. Alexander had that same unshakable center. Society cannot manage someone like that. Because all their systems, politics, advertising, even culture, are built to manipulate predictable reactions. Fear of rejection, desire for praise, the hunger to belong. Alexander's life was proof that when you master these impulses, you become untouchable. And this mastery wasn't just about refusing offers or ignoring insults. It was a discipline that ran through every part of his life. Emotionally, he could stand in the middle of an argument and not raise his voice. People would yell, curse, accuse, and he would respond when he chose, not when provoked. Mentally, he questioned everything, even the beliefs handed to him since childhood, not to rebel for rebellion's sake, but to discover what was true for himself. Morally, he didn't measure right and wrong by the crowd's approval. Sometimes he chose the unpopular path because he knew it was the correct one. And in his desires, he stopped chasing what everyone else was chasing. Instead, he pursued something quieter, deeper: purpose, meaning, integrity. This is why people whispered that Alexander was dangerous. He was a mirror that reflected the control mechanisms of society, and people do not like to see the strings tied to their own backs. Even today, nothing has changed. Governments, corporations, even trends on social media, they all rely on your predictability. They know what will outrage you. They know what will attract you. They can measure it, track it, and use it. But someone like Alexander, he cannot be measured because his reactions are his own. It reminds me of the words of Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Alexander had made his unconscious conscious. He noticed the tiny triggers, the things designed to make him react, and he disarmed them one by one. And I will ask you, how many of your thoughts are truly yours? How many of your choices are not a reaction to some invisible signal you didn't even notice? Pause here. Let that sink in. And while you think about that, remember to subscribe, because what we're discussing here, if you apply it, will change how you live in a world designed to control you. In the last years of his life, Alexander became more than a man. He became a symbol. Not because he tried to start a movement, but because his life was proof that self-mastery is the greatest form of freedom. He lived quietly. He was not famous, but those who knew him never forgot him. And here's the truth. Society does not fear the loud protester as much as it fears the quiet man who no longer dances to its music. Because when one person frees themselves, they show others it can be done. Alexander paid a price for this freedom. He was often misunderstood. People thought he was cold, distant, or arrogant. He lost friends who preferred the version of him that sought approval. And he often walked alone. But the reward was sovereignty. He belonged to himself. His choices were his own. His peace could not be taken. And this, my friends, is the cost and the reward of being a man who cannot be ruled. You see, the world doesn't need more rebels shouting in the streets. It doesn't need more followers blindly obeying. What it needs is more sovereign individuals. People who live consciously, who question the scripts they've been handed, who master their emotions, their thoughts, their morals, their desires. Alexander's story isn't just about one man in the 20th century. It's about a path available to anyone, even you. But the question is, are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to be misunderstood, to lose the comfort of belonging in order to truly belong to yourself? Pause. Look at your own life. Are you living a life you chose or a life you inherited? Are your reactions truly yours? Or are they the programmed responses of a system that knows exactly how to pull your strings? The man who cannot be ruled is not rare because it's impossible. He is rare because few are willing to take the journey inward, to master themselves. And that is why society fears him. If this spoke to you, subscribe. Stay with us, because what we share here will challenge the chains you didn't know you had and help you step into a freedom no system can touch.